It is my incredible honor to have an interview today with the daughter of two of my favorite San Angelo ISD employees. Mom is Major Regina Harris, who's head of the junior ROTC out at Lakeview, and Dad is teacher at Lee Middle School. And what great additions and contributors to our school district. And here now is their oldest, Zenobia, and she was in our school district as an alumni briefly. Came here because raised in the military, came here November of your junior year and graduated from Central. And my stars, have you been successful? We can't take but a little bit of credit for your success.
Oh, no. Central can take a lot of it.
They can?
Yes, because that's where I got started doing speech and debate. And that really, the speech and debate program at Central is really what got me.
You're kidding. So wait a second. Your mom and dad both military and grew up military themselves.
Yes.
And so you grew up, as I did, even though I only had one parent, in a military organized home.
I wouldn't say it was military organized because my dad has a very strong personality, and my dad is not, to me, very military. My dad.
No, I agree with that.
So I mean. My parents really set a good example for me because my mom, tried to leave her work at work. And so she actually had like two personas. It was like Major Harris. And then when she took off her uniform, she tried to just be mom. Like she didn't want us to joke and call her Major Harris because she's like, I'm your mom. I'm not Major Harris.
Well, you're blessed. You're very, very, very blessed. But I think you probably are old enough now to realize that, aren't you? There's a period of time in natural human development that none of us appreciate our parents quite to the degree that I say, and my husband, we say about our children, 23 is when they realize that they were pretty fortunate to have had us. That's what we say anyway. Let's review just a second because most of these folks will not have a clue what you've accomplished and where you've been since graduating. What year from Central?
99.
Okay. Woo, 11 years, girl. You went to West Texas A&M in Canyon and graduated magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Science in Mass Communication and Broadcasting, thus the background in debate. Okay. You were University Woman of the Year. All you got to do now is nod.
Okay.
You were featured in Glamour magazine. You were founder of the Black Women's Association and National Forensics Individual Events Champion.
Speech and debate.
So you like winning arguments, don't you?
As my family can attest, I like to argue and I like to win.
Okay, before we go further into your history, at what point in your maturity did you realize I was going to have more friends if I allowed them to win a few points?
Oh, man. My boyfriend would tell you I still haven't learned that. My sister and brother would too. But I think when I taught, I was a teacher for a little bit. I taught ninth graders and I taught college while I was in graduate school. And it was there that I learned the importance of listening. And I think a lot of people miss out on the importance of listening because it has two things. One, you actually get to hear the person's full thought. Two, it actually gives you more control in the conversation because you know exactly where they're coming from. So if you disagree with them, you can come back with a better, well-thought answer instead of coming in with your immediate thought, you know? So I think it was there that I learned I had to listen to my students because kids, well, I'm still a kid, but students have different viewpoints. And, you as a teacher, you have to learn how to help them develop their viewpoints. And that requires you to listen, And so I think as a teacher, I learned how to be a good listener. And it changed my life.
But even in debate, you have to listen carefully to the other person's side, just as you said, in order to counter. Okay, let's keep going grad school here. University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. I have several relatives who've graduated from there. Master of Arts in Communication, magna cum laude in May of '05. Graduate assistant in speech and debate, teaching associate public speaking. Your thesis, wow, what a great thesis research. How much choice did you have in this? And then I'll tell them what your, a good bit of choice?
Total, I made that decision.
Good. I did on my master's, but my doctorate, I was sort of
like they
nudged.
You. Yeah.
Okay, but for your master's thesis, the transformative abilities of the Black public sphere. Now, it is about Teresa Burrow's account of the civil rights movement in Greensboro, Alabama. Yeah. You told me prior to this interview that part of your life being an Air Force child, you lived in Alabama and at Maxwell.
In Montgomery.
Okay. So was it at that time that you became interested in this, Zenobia?
Oh, no. My mom, I know now teaches her students history, but my mom has been very, and my dad, they both really pushed us to learn Black history.
Okay.
It was very important because sometimes we go to schools and there was no discussion of it. But on military bases, there was a pretty good discussion of it. I feel like the military schools do a really good job. I mean, I don't think a lot of people know that military schools are extremely diverse. I mean, I learned about like different religions, about different cultures. I mean, Chinese culture, Black history. I learned about, Jewish culture. Like it was in religion, it was very diverse. And so between my parents and going to military schools, like I started getting interested in history and different cultures. And if you're in Alabama, there's two things you have to study. Either you study the Civil War or you study the Civil Rights Movement, because that's just like, it was all there. And so I got the chance to go back and I was like, I'm going to study the Civil Rights Movement because I feel like I need to know more about my history. Like, how did I get the privilege of being where I am? Who gave up their, their life sometimes for me? So,
well, I am very interested in history as well, and I also feel, as we discussed prior, that living on different military bases, I had the same experience of, and yet I didn't know it at the time so much.
Right.
But I agree with you. Way to go. Now to your Juris Doctor, Northwestern University School of Law in Chicago, 2008 cum laude. You were a senior research fellow, the co-founder of Northwestern Critical Race Theory Program. That's a long title. And president of Student Effort to Rejuvenate Volunteering.
Very important.
And don't you think the military, there's such a culture of volunteering? You just don't really have the choice.
No.
Which is good.
Yeah.
And therefore, your mother with her ROTC and Colonel Lopez at Central's ROTC, those kids rack up thousands of hours of people in this city know if they need a group of volunteers and to help and are going to work hard, they call Goodfellow Air Force Base and our ROTC
and they should.
Cadets because those kids are going to be there. And way to go.
Yeah.
And then you were Black History Month coordinator, so not only were you going to school, but you were involved in starting organizations and or leading organizations.
And I taught while I was in law school also at a community college in Chicago. So.
How did you like that? Community college students.
I think I really did not understand the value of a community college because I was told 4-year school. Like that's where my sister ended up going to community college and it was such a good experience for her. She actually lived with me in Alabama and went to community college her first 2 years. But the kids were just like, they were developing, it was like a smaller, intimate environment. I felt like it was a good opportunity because it was very inexpensive for them. I racked up so much debt with all my education, but they had an opportunity, to get all their prerequisites out of the way, and then they go to 4-year universities
and learn to study.
And like I think it's such a I really, I mean, I know I keep saying everything is great, but I really think that community colleges are a great option, and I don't think that a lot of students think about them when they're balancing like the cost of going to a bigger school. You know, they might not feel like ready to go into those kind of bigger classroom settings, but community colleges are a great option, and I didn't understand that till I taught there.
I agree with you. They're gems, GEMs in our world that are under the radar. We have a marvelous junior college here in Howard College. Woohoo! You have had some amazing experiences. You have worked as a legal extern for Senator Barack Obama. Now tell us what an extern is as opposed to an intern.
Well, that's like, and I work really hard to make sure on my bio it always says extern and not intern, because interns, I mean, they do more like routine things, but externs, we were basically treated like a portion of the staff. But we were coming from Northwestern, so most of us had master's degrees or bachelor's degrees, and we were almost done with law school. So we actually helped plan policy meetings for then Senator Obama, like to meet with members of the community when he was formulating his health policy. Like I was there, like, and
is it fair to say an extern, one element is that they do research?
A lot of research.
The office holder.
They're unpaid staffers, basically.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize that our state senators who go to D.C. have state offices and D.C. offices. So, like, if you have problems with your passport or, I mean, anything, you can call your senator's office here, wherever it is, you know, and so that's important.
Well, so you got more experience than helping get money to pay back debts.
That's definitely true.
But those kind of things you can't put a price tag on. You were a research assistant while you were in law school, which top grad students are chosen to do that. The rank and file who barely get into grad schools don't get that up. I'm just pointing out for our audience. You might not brag about yourself in that regards. You were a law clerk. You've been a law clerk for a judge at the Supreme Court of Texas. That's really cool.
Justice Wainwright.
And then you have worked in a U.S. District Court in the Western District of Texas in San Antonio. And then now tell us what you're doing.
Well, I'm an appellate attorney at Vinson and Elkins in Houston.
Which is this mega law firm, international law firm. Do you even know how many attorneys are a part of that worldwide?
I know in our Houston office we have about 250, 270 lawyers. I think worldwide we have, I don't want to misstate it.
A lot.
Yeah, we have offices in Dubai and, you know, Hong Kong.
Would you say you are seeing already a specialty that you like in the field of law? What is it?
Appellate law is basically the researchers. If anybody's read John Grisham's appeal, there's a quote in there that I read before I started my job. It says that appellate lawyers are the people who have no social skills and who people go to when things go bad because they stay in their like offices and research and write. That's all we do. We are like the research lawyers.
But now wait a second. You don't meet the total definition there about social skills.
I love to talk. I talk a lot. And it's funny, my coworkers do too. I'm really blessed. I'm extremely blessed. I work with very intelligent, smart women. Like I work with some of the smartest women. Like they remind me of my mom because they're accomplished and they have families and they work hard and they will give any person, man or woman, a run for their money in the courtroom. So I'm like really lucky.
Some others that have debate in their background?
Yeah, they're graduating #1 in their class. They're just really great role models and I'm extremely lucky.
So you really like research, but you have great social skills. So what are you working toward?
I feel like I feel really young. I'm only 28, And I feel like I'm still figuring that out. You know, I really have a great job. And usually people who at law firms, they work to become partner. And that sounds great, but I don't know, you know, what that means long term, because that's like 8 or 9 years down the road. So I think I just take everything step by step. You know, I have a great family. I have a great support system. And I know that whatever decision I make, you know, they'll be supportive. I've changed my mind so many times throughout my life about what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a biomedical scientist at one point, and then I wanted to get my PhD, you know, and now I wanted to be a lawyer. And so they've always been supportive. And so I figure that whenever I make up my mind, it'll work out.
Well, your background is going to set you up for a number of options. You say you're proficient in Spanish.
Sí, puedo hablar
When
español.
did that happen?
Cuando yo estoy en México. Para 3 meses. For 3 months I was in Mexico, in Guadalajara. And I lived in Spain when I was younger. My little brother was born overseas at Zaragoza Air Force Base. And my dad used to make us listen to Spanish tapes. He was like adamant. I'm the only one that like actually took it seriously. My sister and brother were like, what is he doing? It's back when people actually used cassettes. And he used to make us sit around for an hour, like once a week, and listen to Spanish tapes. And so...
And so at what point did you thank him?
Never. Thanks, Dad.
This would be a good time.
Yeah.
Because, wow, isn't that significant? Your hobbies are gardening and playing with your dogs, your pets, your dogs and cats.
Yes.
You like to garden?
I do.
What kind of gardening?
Well, I'm renting a house right now, so I can't do anything permanent. So I have pots. I have hibiscus. I have a eucalyptus. I have 2 azaleas. I'm trying really, really hard to grow an herb, like an herb box. But it's just, Houston's weather is so different, you know. It gets really, really hot, and then it rains. And so I have to learn that once it stops raining, I have to go out and like actually tend to them a lot more when the heat comes. So I like to garden.
So have you researched about gardening in Houston?
A little. Oh, I have a jade also, which is pretty low maintenance. But.
So how many hours a week average are you working as a young lawyer?
Oh, I don't want to scare anybody. I'm like,
Go ahead.
I bill. We have a process called billing where you have to note your hourly billing rates to clients, probably about 40 to 50 hours a week. I'm at work probably 90 hours a week, because I mean the good thing about being at a law firm is that you're going to get a lot of experience. They're amazing for training and things like that, but you also have to learn that, you know, to whom much is given, you know, you have to give this much back. And so I spend a lot of time not just working those 90 hours that I'm working. I also do pro bono work, which is really an important part. So it adds to the time that I'm at work. I go to women's initiatives events. I go to like different community things. If somebody has a luncheon, I go. You know, my bosses and mentors they try to include me a lot. So I go to different like events with them and meet a lot of people in the community. But I think a lot of it has to do with the things that clients don't get billed for is why we're at work so much, because we are leaders in our community, and so we have to be involved in the community. And I appreciate and I respect that because, you know, my upbringing.
Well, and you were, after all, the president of the student effort to rejuvenate volunteering. So you can't just stop that, or then what good did it do?
Right.
Well, way to go. So do you see yourself staying in Houston?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I lived there 15 years and still have family, so I love Houston. Some people, my native Houstonian husband, would say that he was very glad to leave Houston, but it's a great place for it, particularly a young, bright person, because there's lots of there's opportunities if people take them, don't you think?
I totally agree. I mean, I used to go to Rice in college for speech tournaments, And I was like, who lives in these neighborhoods over here? You know, it's like, it's so pretty. It's like I live in a suburb in the middle of the city. You know, I live in Southgate, Westview, basically.
The most beautiful area, one of the most in Texas,
I
is
love
around
it.
Rice University.
The track, there's a really beautiful track, and I'm a suburban kid. I grew up in little suburbs and on military bases, but they're little communities, and so I love it. I mean, and to get, you have that balance of being a big city and living in a suburb and like having all these opportunities, and I love it, and so I want to raise my children there. Have
good for
there.
you.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you ever even briefly consider going JAG?
Yes, I almost did. Actually, about a year ago, and it was a very interesting decision for my family to like wrap their head around, because both of my grandfathers served in the military. I have a cousin who serves in the military, an uncle, my mom. I mean, there's a lot of government service. My aunt works for a very large agency in DC, and so they wondered about that, but I really felt strongly about serving, because I know that people in the military need services, and I knew that I have talents and abilities, and I was like, I need to do something, and I wasn't gonna go in full time. I wanted to go in as a reserve. But I don't think people realize how hard it is. The military doesn't just take anybody to be their JAGs. You have to be extremely qualified, and not just mentally, you have to be physically qualified. So I started running like religiously, because you have to have a certain time and like the mile. And so my uncle was in the Army, was like, Zenobia, I'm like almost 50 years old and I can run the mile faster than you. I was like... So, I mean, I really wanted to do it, but at the end of the day, I couldn't do it because of the length of the training. The training for becoming a JAG is extremely long, and I wouldn't be able to do that and take the job that I have now. But I really want to do more volunteering with veterans. And I don't know if you know, but the Texas Supreme Court and the Texas Access to Justice Commission they have a huge veterans initiative, because I'm sure you know that a lot of veterans and people who are serving right now have financial problems, mental health issues, and because of my family, I feel really passionate about that. So,
way to go!
I'm really passionate about that.
Well, if we can take any credit, SAISD, for the year and a half you were here, we're going to grab it and take it, because you are outstanding.
Do you have a minute?
Yes.
I feel like
yes.
I should say this, because I had some teachers at Central who literally, they were so great for me. Like Mrs. Underwood, she was a Texans sponsor at the time, and she really just gave me an opportunity to be on Texans, because I'd done dance for so long, and she took a chance on me and let me into Texans and did an informal tryout in November when I first got there, and just really helped me. And Carrie French, I think her family does Letty's Boots or something like that in the area. She got me involved in mock trial with Mr. Betty, who's an attorney in the area, and then my English teachers, Miss Eli, Miss Morgan, I know everybody's had them. They taught the honors and AP courses. They really got me into reading advanced literature. I read Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison in Miss Morgan's class, and they just were really great teachers. And then I cannot say enough about the impact the speech and debate community had on me when I was at Central, because I went to summer camp because of my debate teacher, and that's what ended up getting me my full ride to West Texas. And because of that, I won a national title at WT, where we compete against Division I, Division II, everybody competes. And I won a national title, the first Black person to win that title in the history of speech and debate, which has been going on since the early 1900s in the
Had
US.
you been in debate in your prior high schools? Because you told me because of your mother's job, you went to several high schools prior to coming. So you hadn't been in debate?
I wanted to do theater. I did musical theater since I was very young, and I did public speaking, but I didn't know they had competitive public speaking. And so when I got to Central, I couldn't get into the theater classes because they were full. So they put me in the speech and debate class, and it was just I found my niche. And because of that, I got a full ride to graduate school. And I feel like that was a big to have a national champion in public speaking and debate, to go to Northwestern Law School was a big deal. So it helped me get into law school also. And so it all started at Central. And so that is...
Thank you for
it did.
For saying that.
Yeah, it changed my life. Mm-hmm.
Well, Zenobia, I know that in the long tenure of a lawyer's career, you're still very much at the beginning. But you, because of what you have set up and given of yourself, and you've taken advantage of opportunities to grow and are learning from mentors still. You don't feel like you've arrived.
No, I don't. I'm leaving B&E for a 1-year hiatus next year to take another opportunity with the Federal Fifth Circuit, which is the last court before the U.S. Supreme Court. So there's 12 circuits, and then there's the U.S. Supreme Court. And so I got this opportunity too, and I just feel like if an opportunity gets given to you, take it and grab it by the horns and suck it dry, because you're only at this age once, and then you start getting responsibilities and you start devoting your time to a family, which you should totally do. But, getting to that point, you should take advantage of opportunities.
So when do you go serve for that court?
I'm going to the Fifth Circuit on August 9th is when my service starts. And it's great because I get to work for the federal government like my mom has.
So when is that? Where is the Fifth Circuit? Is that New Orleans?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so, but my judge sits in Shreveport.
Okay.
So the judges sit all over. There's some in San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, but my judge sits in Shreveport, and then we all convene I think a month. I'm not quite sure yet, but once a month at least in New Orleans. So I get to go to New Orleans once a month for a year, which that's not too bad.
That's not bad. Mm-hmm. So we will have you back, either during or at the end of that time, to see what has that now contributed to your life. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Oh, no, my pleasure. Real quick before we, I know you have to go, but my mom, when I graduated from high school, I kept putting my grandparents', which was our permanent address in San Antonio, as my address. On my National Honor Society stuff, got sent to the national office, I put San Antonio. And one day my dad was like, Zenobia, do you know that really bothers your mom? That, that we've chosen San Angelo as your home and our home, and you don't put San Angelo as your permanent address, You're from San Angelo now. And I was like, what is she talking about? But I thought about it, and my parents chose San Angelo as their home.
To retire.
To be here. My parents have been in the SAISD for more than 10 years. I think my mom has been here for more than 10 years. My dad close too. And so after that, I always put San Angelo down as my hometown. And I've met so many people who are from San Angelo. I clerked with somebody from San Angelo last year. I meet them everywhere. And it's such a good network. And I'm happy my dad told me that, because San Angelo really is my home now. This is where I come home. This is where I'll bring my children, my husband, so.
They taught you to debate.
They refined it. I already
gave you the opportunity and the venue.
Yes, to voice my opinion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
much. We'll
much.
have you back at the end of, or sometime toward the end of this great
pleasure.
Experience coming up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zenobia.